FaithTalk995.com. This is Faith Talk 99.5. Revive Our Hearts is coming up in 30 minutes. But now it's Searching for the Truth, sponsored by West 65th Street Church of Christ in Little Rock.
Welcome to Searching for the Truth, a live and local call-in program. Call in with your comments or questions now. 855-568-1062. That's 855-568-1062. Your friends at the West 65th Street Church of Christ in Little Rock invite you to open your Bible and study with us as Don McClain answers Bible questions with Bible answers in a search for the truth. This program is presented as part of the efforts of the West 65th Street Church of Christ in Little Rock to search for all the truth presented in God's Word and teach that truth to men and women who, like us, are searching for the truth. Now, here's Don McClain.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Searching for the Truth. It is a beautiful Monday afternoon, and hope that you've had a great day. It's warming up again outside, isn't it? Those of you who are right here with me in Little Rock, Arkansas, it's beginning to feel more like August. It's hot. Last week we had just a nice break. The week before that, really nice weather, but it's getting more like summertime. But that's all right, right? It's supposed to be. And so thank you very much for being with me this afternoon. And as always, if you have a question or a comment, we'd love to hear from you. Our phone number is 1-855-568-1062. 1-855-568-1062. And having some technical difficulties again this afternoon just before the time to begin the broadcast. And I got that straightened out, I hope. Let's see if we can stay online today for the entirety of the broadcast. Let's hope that everything works out well. And whether you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, we do thank you very much for being with us. And just be aware that we have been having technical issues with the computer. It just all of a sudden decides it doesn't want to work anymore, so it just freezes up. And Apple has been working on that. In fact, they were supposed to contact me a little after 4 o'clock today, and they're supposed to have a fix. So we'll see how that works out. So, again, thank you for being with us. And if you have a question or comment, let us hear from you. Our phone number again, 1-855-568-1062. All right. We've been studying through the book of Romans. We were last in Romans chapter 10, finishing up that chapter, and getting ready to get into chapter 11. Well, we may do that tomorrow afternoon. Thought that today we would talk about some other things, and this being Monday, of course, there's always something that happens over the weekend that we may want to talk about, and such is the case this past weekend, as most of you are aware. The tragedy that took place in El Paso, Texas, and also then in Dayton, Ohio. We had, now it's up to 22 people murdered in El Paso. And so, of course, our hearts go out to all those who are affected. And it's just, it's a heartbreaking thing in general when we see such a tragedy take place. It is so sad and absolutely it's shocking, and you really don't have the words. Why do these things happen? What's going on with people? What's wrong with people these days? Back in the early 80s, we had problems in the 70s. We had problems in the 80s. There are a lot of problems in the 60s, right? A lot of chaos. But people weren't just murdering people like they are these days. And of course I know that the technology advances have aided in getting the word out, but still the level of violence in our day and time right now is not what it was back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Generally speaking, we just got so much hate, so much anger. Where does this hatred come from? What's the problem? That's what we're going to be talking about, at least for a little while this afternoon. And maybe you've got some comments that you'd like to share. Share the program, get us out there so others can join us, and let's see if talking about it may not solve. I don't know that anyone that can actually have an impact on what's going on is going to be paying attention to what we have to say about it. And certainly people who are wicked, they are evil. They're not going to be that concerned about what anybody says about it. But nevertheless, we certainly can talk about it. And how should we respond? How should we be thinking? What should we be doing? What can we do to make at least a little difference in the corner of the world where we are? It's just, again, heart-wrenching that we even have to think about these things. Back when I was in school, I would go hunting in the morning, especially in the fall, right? Go hunting in Arkansas. Squirrel hunting, deer hunting. It would not be uncommon for me to pull up on the school parking lot with my gun hanging in my gun rack. Leave my back glass open, my windows down, my doors unlocked. Nobody's going to mess with anything. You don't have to worry about it. That's just the way it was. Of course, I was probably naive, and certainly somebody could have done something, but didn't have that fear back then. Didn't have that problem as we seem to have today. Things were just different. But I think culture's changed a lot. There are some good things that have happened, in the last 40 years, the last 30 years. There have been some good things, but there have also been some very bad things. So let's begin by asking the question, why is there so much wickedness? Why do these things happen? I think that the easy answer, is that there's wickedness in the world, that there's so much sin in the world, which has always been the case, right? I mean, there have always been sinners. There's always been sin going all the way back to the Garden of Eden. Well, I tell you what, you could go back to the Garden of Eden. When Adam and Eve first sinned, they opened the door for this. And Satan has taken advantage of it. And he didn't take long to take advantage of it. It wasn't very long before the first murder took place. You have Cain murdering Abel. Murdering his own brother because he was jealous of his brother Abel being accepted by God. And because Abel was accepted, Cain murdered him. As you go through that, and you think about it, Cain was very angry and his countenance fell. Anger is a real problem in our culture today. It's a real problem. People just get angry over the smallest things. People get angry very easily. What does that have to do with our problems? Why do people get so angry? Well, again, that's always been an issue. Just how do we deal with it, right? The Lord asked Cain, "Why are you angry?" Sometimes we ask the same question. Why are people so, or I do, why are people so angry? That's a mindset that people have fallen into. But why does God even allow this? You go on through the book of Genesis, you get over to Genesis chapter 6, for example, and what do we find? When we get there, you see that the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, verse 5. Every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Seems like, as Jesus said, in the days of Noah, they were eating, drinking, they were giving in marriage and marrying. And so, as in the days of Noah, people are also becoming more and more wicked. The Apostle Paul talks about the the growth of selfishness and sin and the consequences of that, the apostasy that would take place, apostasy, false teaching, false doctrine, certainly is a problem and has contributed to the issues. You go to 2 Timothy chapter 3, and Paul speaks of perilous times. In the last days, perilous times will come, for men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. And all of these things certainly can be seen in our culture. It's everywhere, right? We can see this. Wickedness. A lot of people will say, well, people are mentally ill, and there's no question mental illness is a problem. Some of that may be contributed by drugs and things, not just by the one who has the mental ill problem, but also maybe their parents or what have you, and that's an attributing factor. But the reality is there is just ungodliness that is so prevalent. Could it be that back in the 60s, our government began to kick God out of everything? Could that perhaps have something to do with our condition these days? Could it be that when you begin to extricate God out of, from our vision, just completely eradicate Him from our educational system, completely eradicate God from our vision, and the continued slander that takes place in our institutions of higher learning against God and against those who believe in God? Do you think that maybe that has something to do with the issue? Could it be that just a lack of respect for God, generally speaking, in our day and time, has something to do with it? I want to say to you, my friend, I think that is the answer to our problem. Why we have so much violence and so much wickedness. Just like in the days of Noah, the land was filled with violence. That's exactly what the book of Genesis says. In verse 9, we have the generations of Noah. Noah walked with God, but he was all alone in that. Look at verse 11 of Genesis chapter 6. The earth was corrupt. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So God looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. Why do we have the problem that we do today? Well, it's because, again, history is repeating itself. Men have become corrupt before God. We've put God out of our knowledge, out of our minds as a people. And so we've got a major crisis going on. In the book of Romans chapter 1 and verse 18, we begin by saying that the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men. Let this be made known to all of us. First and foremost, the day is coming when God is going to make all wrongs right. He's going to flip the script, and those who are wicked will be punished. God is going to take vengeance against all ungodliness. Be aware of that. So even though wickedness may be prevalent today, and as it was 2,000 years ago against the church, as it was 6,000 years ago with Cain and Abel, so we've always had wickedness, we've had violence, we've had evil, but eventually God is going to destroy the wicked and condemn the wicked into eternal punishment. That day is coming. But wicked men suppress the truth. That's one of the things that Paul talks about in Romans chapter 1, verse 18. The ungodly and unrighteous men suppress the truth. in unrighteousness. We want to hide the truth from men, and so more and more wickedness abounds. And what may be known of God is certainly manifest. God has shown us, but men do not believe God. Even though his attributes are clearly seen in the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, but men put that out of their mind. We want to completely cross out God from our thoughts. The wicked do, by the way. Not me. Not me personally, and I hope not you either. But more and more people are doing just that. And men refuse to glorify God as God. And they profess to be wise. And they become fools. And they can try this and they can... Listen, here's another important thing, my friend. I don't care how many laws we pass. I don't care who the president is. I don't care who's sitting in the Senate. I don't care who's sitting in the House of Representatives. I don't care who's on the Supreme Court. We can pass all the laws that we want, but we're not going to eradicate the wickedness that is abiding in the hearts of men, separate and apart from the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's not going to happen. We cannot solve the problem unless and until men turn to Jesus Christ. And that's the only solution that there is. Of course, I'm a realist, and I know that just like historically speaking, as the past continues to repeat itself, the majority will always not be believing in God, right? The majority will always be those who are wicked. It's always going to be the case. We need to be realists. There's the answer. It's really simple, but the application of that is certainly not. Now, I understand that the government could do certain things perhaps that would help, but it's kind of like treating the symptoms instead of the actual disease. The reality is, for example, if you had cancer, cancer is going to cause a lot of symptoms. The pain and other things that would be caused by cancer that accompanies it, and then the treatments, the symptoms from the treatments. But you've got a disease, and that disease is wickedness. It's cancer of our culture. It's sin. But instead of dealing with the cancer, the sin, the wickedness, we just try to focus on the symptoms without dealing with the disease. That's kind of like treating cancer by just treating the symptoms and not treating the disease itself. It'll never go away. So what we need to do, certainly treating the symptoms is something that has to be done, but we have to get back to the disease itself. You've got to get to the disease, and that is wickedness, evil, sin. And the only answer to that is Jesus Christ. Let me also share with you this observation. I am so thankful that we live in America, where we do have freedom, we have liberty. But one of the things that our founding fathers understood was that in order to have freedom, you had to be a self-restrained, self-governing people. People who could practice self-control. And of course, God is the only real force that can truly bring that control about. But again, when you remove God from the equation, now what do you have? You have anarchy. You have wickedness and evil that's going to be running rampant. Well, our founding fathers understood that. They knew that if you remove God, that the republic would crumble. They understood that. And my friend, that's exactly what will happen, and what has happened, and what will continue to happen. And as someone said that's watching us, thank you again for tuning in. So sad when people have left God out of their knowledge. They've sowed the wind years ago trying to exclude him. Now they are weeping the whirlwind, becoming a typhoon. And yeah, and that's exactly what is happening. Um, Someone else said, I think our country will be brought down from within. Well, yes, I would agree with that. Just like Rome, right? It was the immorality of Rome that finally brought down its destruction. And that's certainly something that has happened to every major power, major empire and nation in the history of mankind. Wickedness destroys from within. It's like a cancer that just devours, that destroys. It erodes the fabric of culture and society. And as we turn around, you see the breakdown of the family. There are so many things that contribute to these type of horrendous events. So many things. But again, at the center of it is a lack of reverence for God. Don't you think that's right? The lack of reverence for God. Let me say this too. Okay? Share a little opinion with you and see what you think about it. We can blame the government. We can blame certain presidents. We can blame atheists who have pushed their agenda over the years. We can blame all these people, and we can blame moms and dads for not raising their children correctly, which has a lot to do with it. We can blame a lot of people. But I want to tell you somebody else that we can blame. We can blame religious leaders. We can blame preachers, pastors, elders. We can blame the religious leaders for a watered down gospel, false teaching. There are several things. Number one, the whole idea of, well, truth really doesn't matter. The subjectivism that people have placed on and labeled truth as being, just your truth is your truth, whatever that is, that's fine. We've lost our way. We're no longer anchored to the truth. And religious leaders are a big part of the reason why we have been pushing for you do your thing, we'll do our thing. It really doesn't matter anyway. Then you've got also the false teaching that grace covers your sin as you sin. We get this idea that God is so loving, He's so merciful, and He's so kind that He will not punish us for our sin. You think that may have something to do with the problem? Do you think that maybe the doctrine of even if you do this or that, then you're still going to heaven anyway because you have once been saved? Your actions. In fact, I saw a post this morning on Facebook where this fella just flat out said, your actions have absolutely nothing to do with your soul's salvation. You can live like the devil and still go to heaven. Do you think that kind of doctrine may have something to do with this? This easy believism that God is so loving, He's not going to send anyone to an eternal hell. Certainly, there are folks say, well, religion was really created just because they wanted to use the scare tactic of hell to get people in line. Atheists use that argument. Well, I want to tell you something, my friend. The Bible does talk quite a bit about the wrath of God. In fact, right here in Romans chapter 1, the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men. You know what, my friend? This is part of the gospel message. And it's not just against people who are murderers and thieves and but just unbelievers and ungodliness in general. Those who suppress the truth and righteousness, and those who do not glorify God as Creator. By the way, the only way we can glorify God is to trust Him enough to follow Him, to do what He says. The book of Proverbs, chapter 1 and verse 7 says this. It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Until we gain our reverence for God, our fear of the Lord back, we're not going to get any better. We're just going to get worse. Thank you for hearing me out today. Lord willing, we'll be back tomorrow, and we'll talk about the book of Romans. We're going to get back into Romans chapter 11. Until then,
the Church of Christ that meets at 7115 West 65th Street in Little Rock has presented this program in the interest of searching for the truth. To request a past program, religious discussion, sermon CD, or religious literature, call 501-568-1062. That's 501-1062. You can email Don McClain by going to the church's website, w65stchurchofchrist.com. If you prefer to write to the West 65th Street Church of Christ, the address is P.O. Box 190062, Little Rock, Arkansas 72219. Please join us for Bible study this Sunday morning at 9 a.m. and worship at 10 a.m. Sunday evening worship begins at 5 p.m. We also have a Wednesday evening Bible study at 7 p.m. You're welcome at any and all of these services. Tell your friends to tune in each weekday at 3 p.m. for Searching for the Truth on Faith Talk 99.5. We hope our efforts will help you as you search for the truth.